Okay, so now that we have the spring arm and the camera attached to the player and we can see the player, we need to add a sword and a shield. So go ahead and open up Epic Games Launcher, go to the marketplace, search for free fantasy weapons sample pack. You want to go up here, search for products, and just type in free fantasy weapon, and you should see the free fantasy weapons sample pack. So now with this search box up here, sometimes it's kind of slow. You might have to type slow and so it can actually keep up. And under here, supported platforms, I'm on a Mac. It doesn't show that it supports Mac. So what I had to do was just copy and paste a folder from that I had it on a hard drive before for Windows. So I just went on ahead and just copied and pasted it into the folder here, and it works. So when you add the project, just choose your project and it will go ahead and install it. And then you'll see it right here. It'll say weapon pack. And if we click on that, we should choose weapons and then sample kit. And you'll see some stuff that we have: daggers, swords, shields, spears, axes. So we need to attach the sword. We're going to use the sword, this sword right here. We're going to use this one for the Paladin character. So come up here to the Paladin, right here, Paladin. Open up the blueprint. So we need to attach a weapon. We're going to use a static mesh because the weapon sample packs, if you look at this, they say static mesh. Sometimes it'll say skeletal mesh, but this is a static mesh. So we go back to the blueprint. You want to make sure you click on the mesh component right here. Click on mesh. It says character mesh 0. Make sure you choose the mesh here. Come up here, choose add, type in static. You want to choose static mesh, and then we can just say sword mesh. And make sure it's under your static mesh component is under the mesh right here, or it's not going to work properly. So now that we have a static mesh for a component, we need to just type in SM sword, and we can compile and save. Now if we go to the viewport, the sword is right there. So what we need to do is we need to attach it to the right hand. In order to do that, we need to create a socket for the sword to be attached to. So if we come up here, click on the top part, Paladin character, we go to skeletal mesh asset. You want to click the folder icon. The skeletal mesh, you want to double click and you want to open that up. I go over here to the top right to the skeleton portion. We want to search for the right hand. There's the left hand. So the right hand, right hand. So now we have a right hand. What we need to do is right click, add socket. I'm going to do function 2 and just type in sword socket. So now we have a sword socket. What we can do is add a preview. So let's come up here, right click, add preview. You want to type in sword. There's the SK sword. We don't want that. We want a SM sword, static mesh. So now that we have the sword in the static mesh, we need to maneuver it around. And we just come right here. We just maneuver this around a little bit. Get that looking pretty decent. Doesn't need to be perfect, but that should be good. So in order to see what it's going to look like with your animation, you can come up here to Preview Controller, right click, Use Specific Animation, search for Idle, and then that's what it's going to look like. You can go ahead and pause that down at the bottom. Just hit the pause button and then just look at it to make sure it looks okay. Okay, might be a little bit too big, but we can go ahead and change that. So that looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's go back to Paladin character. Now you want to click on sword mesh, make sure your sword is chosen, and you want to come up here where it says sockets, parent socket. Click the folder icon, you'll see the sword socket. You want to choose that. So now that we have that static mesh attached to the correct socket, and we can go ahead and compile, click save, come up here, play. Everything looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and eject, and that looks a little big. So let's go ahead and stop this. Let's go ahead and make sure the sword is chosen. What we can do is just say 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. Go ahead and do that. Compile, save, go back, see what it looks like, eject out. Okay, that looks pretty decent. So that's how you can scale it and make sure it looks pretty decent. Go ahead and eject out. I'm going to go back here and maneuver this down just slightly a bit. Click save, go back to the test map, and there we go. So everything looks pretty decent. So that is how you attach things. And what you can do is come up here, uncheck real time, and that will pause it, and then you can maneuver around and make sure everything looks good. So now what we need to do is do it for the shield. So what you can do is go ahead and pause the video and try that out for yourself. So let's go ahead and do this same thing for the shield. Let's make sure you click on mesh, go up here to add and say static mesh, and we say a shield mesh. So that's a shield mesh. Compile, save. We want to jump back over into the skeleton, and then we go to left hand. We add socket and choose it, function 2, and we're going to say shield socket. What we're going to do is right click, add preview mesh, shield. I'm going to use the static mesh one. And as we can see, doesn't look too good. So let's come over here. Let's rotate this around. Yeah. Okay. So now that looks pretty decent. Now you can come up here and then you can choose these. These select the trans object. This just right up here in the top right. This just changes it. Or you can do W, you can do E, you can do R on the keyboard and it changes it. Also this right here, I like setting this select position grid to 5, set the rotation to 5. That way it moves slightly, just kind of, let me re-choose it. See, it just moves it slightly. Okay, let's go ahead and click save, go back to the character blueprint, we've got the shield mesh. What we need to do is add a static mesh, and we want to choose shield, and it's down below. So what we need to do is go to parent socket, and you go to shield socket. Now that looks pretty decent. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and compile, save, and we run over to the test map, click play, and now we are good to go. Eject, and everything looks pretty decent. There we go. Everything looks pretty decent. It's more of a Viking shield, and that's a Paladin, but hey, we work with what we got. So everything is good to go. However, you cannot maneuver around. That is because we need to code that in with the movement. We will do that in the next video. But that is how you attach objects to your character. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.